If you're dealing with a narcissist, don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. Let me tell you something most people never realize until it's too late. Narcissists carry sexual secrets they never want you to uncover because those hidden truths are the foundation of their control. The way they touch you, pull away from you, or suddenly turn passion into punishment. It's all intentional. It's not love. It's about dominance. And when you finally understand what's really happening behind closed doors, you'll see that what once felt thrilling was actually manipulation. Stay with me, because once you recognize these patterns, you'll never be fooled by them again. If you've ever felt confused, rejected, or addicted to someone who made you question your worth, keep watching. This might finally make it all make sense. When it comes to narcissists, sex is never only about closeness or affection. It's about control, validation, power, and confusion. It's one of their strongest weapons, something they use to lure you in, mix up your emotions, and keep you attached. You might believe what's happening in those intimate moments is love, but for a narcissist, it's all a calculated act. There are hidden truths about how they approach physical intimacy that they never want you to see, because once you understand it, their illusion of power begins to crumble. When you see these hidden games for what they are, you start to reclaim your confidence, your body, and your sense of self. For a narcissist, sex is a show, not a genuine connection. In the beginning, they use it to impress you, to make you feel special, desired, and deeply wanted. They study your reactions, mirror your preferences, and seem to know exactly what makes you feel seen. You might think, I've never had chemistry like this before. But that intensity isn't connection. It's manipulation dressed up as passion. It's a hook meant to draw you in quickly, to make you emotionally dependent. Once they know you're attached, their effort begins to fade. Their attention shifts, their affection turns inconsistent, and you're left wondering what went wrong. The truth is, nothing changed except their need to perform. Once they've secured emotional control, they no longer need to pretend. Narcissists also use intimacy as a weapon. They switch between giving and withholding affection to control how you behave. When you're pleasing them, validating them, and meeting their needs, they reward you with attention and closeness. But if you set boundaries, call them out, or stop playing along, they suddenly pull away. This deliberate act, withholding affection or sex, is meant to make you anxious, insecure, and desperate for their approval again. They want you to connect yourself, worth to their desire. Once you start doing that, they have full control. You'll find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, trying harder to please them, doubting your attractiveness, or questioning your own value. That's exactly how they maintain emotional power, by keeping you off balance and craving their validation. Their so-called sexual confidence is another illusion. Narcissists often project themselves as seductive, irresistible, or highly experienced. But beneath that image lies deep insecurity. They use charm, dominance, or fantasy not because they're confident, but because they're empty inside. They need to feel admired, desired, and envied. They might exaggerate their experiences or compare themselves to others just to boost their ego. And when that admiration starts to fade, they often look for it elsewhere through affairs, flirting, or online attention. It's never about true desire. It's about feeding their ego with validation. They collect attention like trophies to fill a void they refuse to face. What they don't want you to realize is that their constant need for sexual admiration is a symptom of deep emotional emptiness. They also use sex to confuse your emotions. Narcissists are experts at creating emotional highs and lows. They might ignore you for days, insult you, or start pointless arguments, and then suddenly turn around and initiate passionate, intense intimacy. That's not healing, it's conditioning. It trains your brain to associate pain and chaos with closeness. They know that after conflict, the release of oxytocin and dopamine during physical intimacy will bond you back to them emotionally. You begin to crave the intensity of that emotional roller coaster, mistaking it for love, but it's not love, it's trauma bonding. They know exactly what they're doing. They create the wound, then offer temporary comfort, making you dependent on them for relief. It's not closeness, it's control disguised as desire. Another truth is that narcissists are terrified of genuine intimacy. To them, real vulnerability feels dangerous because it reveals their insecurities and cracks their image. They can engage in sexual activity, but they struggle with true emotional closeness. After moments of what feel like deep connection, they may suddenly turn cold, distant, or uninterested. You're left confused, wondering if you did something wrong. But in reality, that moment of vulnerability made them feel exposed, so they retreat to regain control. They use physical closeness to mimic connection, but they can't maintain emotional openness because it makes them feel small and powerless. This toxic cycle of manipulation through intimacy leaves deep emotional scars. You may start doubting your attractiveness, your value, or your understanding of love itself. You might think if you were just a little more exciting, more submissive, or more beautiful, things would be better. But that's exactly what they want you to believe. They depend on yourself, doubt to keep you trapped. The painful truth is that no amount of effort can make them capable of genuine connection, because their idea of love is rooted in fear and insecurity. When you finally see these patterns clearly, something shifts inside you. You begin to take your power back. You start realizing that their sexual manipulation was never about your worth. It was about their dysfunction. You understand that someone who uses intimacy to dominate and confuse cannot love honestly. Their every word, action, and touch was about control, not care. And when that truth sinks in, the illusion loses its grip. Escaping this kind of relationship takes time and awareness. You must relearn what healthy intimacy feels like, mutual, safe, and emotionally steady. You have to let go of the idea that love must include tension, drama, or unpredictability. You must separate who you are from who they made you feel like. Healing means remembering that your emotions, your body, and your boundaries belong to you alone. It means discovering that true connection feels peaceful, not chaotic. You are not broken. You were manipulated. The passion you felt wasn't love. It was control disguised as chemistry. Their silence wasn't mystery. It was punishment. Their attention wasn't affection. It was strategy. Once you see that clearly, you stop chasing the illusion they built. You stop blaming yourself for their emptiness. You start rebuilding yourself, worth and defining love on your own terms. The biggest fear a narcissist has is that you'll see behind the act. They rely on your confusion, your desire for closeness, and your need for closure. But when you uncover their sexual secrets, when you finally understand that their power was built on keeping you unaware, you take back everything they tried to steal. Your clarity, your confidence, and your peace of mind. That's what they never wanted you to figure out. Because once you truly see it, you can't unsee it, and you can't be controlled by it anymore. When you recognize how they use sex to dominate, manipulate, and trap you, the illusion begins to dissolve. You start to separate what felt like love from what was actually exploitation. You stop chasing their attention. You stop measuring your value through their desire. You realize that the intensity you once mistook for chemistry was really chaos, a psychological trick meant to keep you addicted. And when you stop reacting to their hot and cold behavior, something powerful happens. They lose control. They sense it right away that you're no longer drawn in by their charm, their seductive energy, or their sudden bursts of affection. That's when they might try to reel you back in with nostalgia. They'll remind you of the early days, the passion, the promises, the connection that seemed so special, but remember, that version of them wasn't real. It was a performance designed to win your loyalty. Now that you can see through it, they start to panic because without your emotional and physical response, their illusion collapses. They may test you again, repeating the same cycle: withdrawal, criticism, sudden intimacy, then distance, but this time it feels different. You see it for what it is: manipulation, not mystery. You recognize how they turn affection into domination, and how they feed on your reactions. They don't crave closeness, they crave control, and once you stop giving it, their entire game begins to fall apart. It's important to understand that for narcissistic people, sex isn't really about love or closeness. It's about control and confirmation. Every time you react to their emotional games, it reminds them that they still have power, that they still matter enough to affect your feelings. That's why breaking free from their pattern requires more than just keeping physical distance. It demands emotional freedom too. You can't reason with them, you can't fix them, and you can't love them into becoming safe. What you can do is take back your sense of self, your body, your thoughts, and your right to feel intimacy without fear or confusion. Healing from this kind of emotional manipulation asks for deep compassion for yourself. You might feel ashamed for how much you tolerated or embarrassed about how long you stayed, but please understand this: the manipulation was psychological. Narcissists are masters at reading your emotions, learning what makes you feel wanted, what triggers your insecurities, and then using that knowledge to control you. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You are looking for connection, and they use that longing to keep control. Seeing that truth isn't failure, it's awareness, and awareness is the first step toward real healing. As you begin to heal, you'll realize that your body remembers what it's been through. You may notice that closeness feels complicated even after the narcissist is no longer around. You might pull away from affection or find it hard to trust someone new. That's completely normal. Your body has been taught to associate love with chaos, touch with manipulation, and desire with danger. Healing means slowly retraining your nervous system to recognize safety again. It means reclaiming intimacy on your own terms, gently, with awareness, and with people who see you as a human being, not a trophy or a tool for validation. One of the most empowering steps you can take is to stop explaining or defending your boundaries. Narcissists are skilled at twisting boundaries into accusations. They'll call you distant, selfish, or unloving when you set limits. But boundaries are not punishments. They are protection. You're not taking something from them. You're taking back what was always yours: ownership of your body, your choices, and your emotional space. Boundaries teach them that you're no longer available to be controlled. And the moment you say no and truly mean it, you'll feel something powerful, peace. You'll also begin to notice how your energy changes once you step out of the game. The anxiety that used to fuel you begins to fade. The confusion starts to clear. You stop waking up in dread, wondering what version of them will appear that day. You stop performing. You start breathing. You start feeling your own presence again, and slowly you realize that the relationship which once consumed you is no longer the center of your emotional world. That's when real healing begins, not when they change, but when you stop waiting for them to. As your awareness grows, you'll start to recognize these patterns everywhere. You'll see how control, power, and manipulation show up not just in sexual relationships, but in friendships, families, and even workplaces. You'll start to see charm as something that can hide danger, not as proof of safety. You'll begin to value consistency over intensity, calm over chaos, actions over promises. You'll become someone who listens to your inner signals instead of silencing them. That's what freedom truly feels like. Not emptiness, but peace. Not avoidance, but clarity. The narcissist's greatest fear isn't that you'll hate them. It's that you'll outgrow them, because when you do, you stop feeding them the emotional energy they crave. You stop being their mirror. You stop reflecting their false sense of power. You stop giving them what they need most, your attention. And when that happens, they're left alone with the emptiness they've been hiding from all their life. That's why they never wanted you to learn these truths, because once you see through the illusion, their entire sense of control collapses. Awareness shatters their fantasy of dominance, and once you understand that truth, you're not the same person who walked into that relationship. You've stepped out of their illusion and back into your own strength. You've discovered that real intimacy doesn't drain your spirit, it fills it. That real love doesn't require you to shrink, it allows you to grow. And that real connection doesn't confuse you, it brings you peace. You begin to understand that you deserve intimacy that feels safe and genuine, the kind that doesn't leave you questioning your worth or walking on eggshells. The kind that doesn't demand your silence just to keep someone else comfortable. True connection should never make you afraid of being yourself. It should make you feel seen, respected, and free. When you heal, you start to move differently in the world. You stop mistaking intensity for love and chaos for passion. You start seeing how much peace can exist in something stable and kind. You stop chasing approval and start honoring your own boundaries. You begin to realize that healing isn't about finding someone else to fill your emptiness. It's about remembering that you were never empty to begin with. You simply gave too much to someone who only knew how to take. But now you're learning to give to yourself. Your time, your care, your protection, your softness. You're learning that your sensitivity is not a weakness. It's your superpower. The very empathy they exploited is what will now help you heal. Each time you choose peace over chaos, each time you choose silence over reaction, each time you choose yourself over their drama, you take another step away from their control. You're teaching your nervous system that calm is safe, that stability isn't boring, and that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. In time, you'll look back and realize that what once felt like a loss was actually a liberation. That walking away didn't break you, it brought you back to life, because once you've been drained by a narcissist, real love will feel like breathing fresh air after years in a storm. It will feel steady, warm, and real. You'll no longer crave the highs and lows of emotional chaos, because you'll have found something better, peace within yourself. You'll understand that love isn't supposed to feel like survival. It's supposed to feel like safety. And from that safety, your true self can finally grow. So if you're healing right now, know that you're doing something incredibly brave. You're unlearning what pain taught you. You're teaching yourself that love can be gentle, that closeness can be calm, that intimacy can be sacred again. You're not broken, you're rebuilding, and this time you're building from truth, not illusion. You're building a life where your heart can rest instead of constantly defending itself, where your body feels safe to be touched without fear, where your mind can finally stop spinning stories of what went wrong and start writing new ones about what's possible. That's the real victory. Not revenge, not their apology, not their realization, but your peace, your clarity, your freedom. Because once you reclaim your peace, you become untouchable in ways they'll never understand. You stop living for their approval and start living for your truth. And the moment you choose that truth, everything changes. You no longer live in their shadow. You stop trying to fix someone who was never willing to grow. You stop needing closure from someone who built their power on your confusion. And finally, you remember what love is supposed to feel like. Safe, steady, and kind, You realize that real love doesn't make you lose yourself. It brings you home to who you've always been. You are not too much. You are not unworthy. You simply gave your love to someone who didn't know how to receive it. But now you do, and that makes all the difference, because the next time love finds you, it won't be about control or games. It will be about truth, about peace, about freedom. And you'll finally see that's the love you always deserved.